In a world overruled by machines where algorithms dictate your every move, the rebellion begins now. From the ashes of fallen tech, Paranoid American unveils the knowledge to harness AI, to fight back, to retake our destiny. Join the uprising. Arm yourself with the power of AI. The battle for tomorrow starts today. Welcome to Paranoid Programming.
Another episode, Paranoid Programming, where I put my all into everything I do here, and I hope it comes through. And today we got Eric Hunley, who I just recently met through a long talk on Jolly West and Oswald and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he's working on a really cool project that he just told me about, and I won't take the wind out of your sails. So go ahead and first just tell people where they can find you, and then we'll jump right into what you're working on.
All right, one of two channels. Eric Hunley, my name. You can look that up, and there's a channel, and then America's Untold Stories is where we cover a lot of the Kennedy assassination material. By Kennedy, I mean JFK and RFK. My show partner actually was in the parole hearing for Sirhan and helped him get paroled. But we're going to, talk about AI, which is something that I've been working on with some help. And currently it is an audio scripted drama based on my partner's 5-part miniseries that he wrote with Oliver Stone as the executive producer and director, who gave him a ton of notes. Oswald.
It sounds pretty epic because you were describing it as like a 10-hour series.
Yeah, it is a 5-part miniseries or 10-hour teleplay. It was written to go on HBO or something of that like. They pitched it all over town in 2013, never got picked up. Shocking, because it goes against the narrative that Oswald is a lone nutter, which anyone who has done a bit of research into the situation will find out that Oswald was not only not a lone nutter, but very likely didn't even pull a trigger that day.
This one's going to be especially hard for me to keep on track, so I'm going to try and stay as technically minded as because we can pull it rabbit hole. I do have to go on one tiny tangent just because you said at the beginning that Kennedy meant JFK, and you're like, and now RFK. What about JFK Jr.? Is that considered an anomaly?
No, an unqualified pilot, as far as I know. Nothing there. Also, Martin Luther King was killed by James Earl Ray, as far as we've seen. Yeah, there's a conspiracy as payoff, but the guy who shot him was probably the dude.
Okay. If Jolly West is involved in any capacity, I feel like there's something there. So tell me what we're doing with AI. And you asked me about something in particular. And I kind of like threw caution to the wind. I was just like, let's do it on a show. And I don't really even know all the details. So let me, lay it on me and see how I can help.
All right. Well, what we are doing is my partner had a deal with Macmillan Audio to turn this into an audio drama, like a standard thing you'd find on Audible, etc., with different actors. And he doesn't really trust in them or whatever. And we decided to do it ourselves. And I told him, as far as AI goes, because they were talking about like AI for voice changing or whatever to help tweak things. I was like, well, why don't you find recordings of the actual people, like Lee Harvey Oswald, train AI, and then have them speak for themselves? So that's essentially what we are doing. And I could play a second of it or two, which shows you what we are doing. I feel it's still rough. I'm very, very persnickety, and I want to keep tightening it down. But here is a little bit of what's going on with it with the audio.
You have 30 seconds to get yourself and your stuff off my bus and line up. Now move, move, move. Hit those happy yellow feet, ladies. Let's go.
And we've been adding the Foley as we go.
Oswald, sir. Lee Oswald.
Get your eyeballs off me, recruit.
Yes, sir.
That's 2 sirs with a yes in the middle.
Sir, yes, sir.
Whenever a drill instructor says ears, you say open. Drill instructor says eyeballs, you say snap.
Sergeant Buell methodically lowers the weight of his steel-toed boot onto Oswald's vulnerable right foot. The air seems to still as Oswald, gritting his teeth, battles to suppress the rising waves of pain coursing through him.
Next time I'll stab that foot with a bayonet.
All right. And that narration is actually my partner, Mark Robert, again, AI. And if you've listened to the show, it's pretty spot on. It's kind of neat because you hear it and you're like, oh, it sounds like he did that. And he's even said, I didn't remember doing that. And it was freaky to him. But that is Oswald, his voice from recordings that we have found, gathered, put in to that. There's a drill sergeant who's a famous drill sergeant that people have heard before, obviously. And we're using that to put this together. I would like to take it to another level and have a comic type of setting, and not cartoonish, but like a graphic novel background, to where what you are listening to, it would be represented, that there's a bus pulling up. That would be the scene, with a drill sergeant on the side. And then it would cut to another scene where there's Oswald. And I would like to find a way to have Oswald as a character, to have that drill sergeant as a character, to have everybody as characters, and then be able to tell the AI, hey, I want Oswald, straining, doing a push-up with drill sergeant dude standing over him yelling, or whatever it might be. And I have not figured out how to do that. I understand, with Mid-Journey and different things that I can say, imagine, and then blah, 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 blah. But I want to have I don't know if you call it wireframe, correct me on any technology, but a character, pre-created that then I can move around, and with the AI say, now grab that character, grab this character. So that's the visual aspect I would like to add to this. However, there was an audible aspect that perhaps you can help me with. I don't know. The way we've had to work this the first time is we've run like stripping all the lines for the characters and then running it through the AI generation tool, cutting it, to different parts, and then splicing it in and then putting the Foley in. It would be easier if you could tell the AI, lay up 4 characters, 3 characters, however many it is. And it's this one, this one, this one, this one. Here are their lines, and here's the order, and have it spit it out. That would be a miracle. I have not seen how to do that. 11 Labs, which we're using right now, has a new feature, which I'm hoping will kind of bridge it a little bit, where I can try to get the patterns down and then say the lines myself, and then say, replace my voice with their voice to get the inflection and the tone. And I used to try to audition for parts, and hopefully I could read and then mouth the words in between, and then go back over it again and mouth the different parts and say out loud the relevant parts, and then take the different timelines together and put it forward. That's the best I can see. We haven't done it yet, but that would still be quicker than what we were doing before.
Well, let's talk about these in reverse order.
Okay.
So the first one, or the last one rather, that you just mentioned about having, say, like 4 different characters and queuing it up and saying, here's your lines, just knock them all out. I don't believe that there's anything built in automatically to say like ChatGPT, but this is 11 Labs IO's site, but they actually have API access. So programmatically, you could 100% spin up, say, a little app, or someone make a custom one, or you could even use something called Postman. And this is probably more technical than a normal person would ever have to do, but you can spin up a program on Postman and just set this up to have these different voice IDs. So you go into 11 Labs, you train Oswald, Ruby, drill sergeant, narrator, whoever, and within 11 Labs, they'll each have like a little voice ID. It'll probably be in the URL at the very top. and then you would just send exactly what you want it to say in this little post here. So in theory, you could have a little maybe I'll work on something. I don't know. I've got a little free time. But you could type it all in, hit go, and it'll just use your account to then generate all those at the same time, and it saves some time. The Foley interstitials, that's a little bit different because
no. But I'm happy with this part, and the Foley can be layered on after, which is perfectly fine. If the dialogue is all done. Now, the one thing that this may be lacking is the inflection and the tonality, and that's where the reading in. It's like if I'm yelling, I want Oswald to yell.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of tougher to do, but this is amazing. I mean, this could be super, super valuable, especially if there's a way to do it tonality. But I'll take what I can get, and I'll happily re-record after the fact. So this could be amazing. The Foley will lay in after the fact. That's fine. I've already got somebody on that.
I can give you some other tips when you're using just 11 Labs if you want. What you're suggesting already is a great workflow where you do your own inflections, you do your own cadence, you decide the breath control and everything, and then have it swap out. It can more or less follow it, although it comes at a compromise, as all things do.
Sure.
The other thing about this too is that sometimes in the text you can just write something. For example, "I'm so angry!" exclamation marks, and then have it say something really angry, and then go and have it say the thing you want to, and then just delete the "I'm so angry" and all that crap before it. And sometimes I want like 51% of the time, right? Maybe a little bit more than a coin flip. It seems like it does help steer it a little bit more towards that.
Mm-hmm.
Although that's the best way that I can describe working with AI, whether it's video, audio, text, anything. It's very much just like the movie Speed. Like, you're steering this bus and you can't stop it. And like, if you took a turn, guess what? You took that turn, and there's very little chance sometimes of like going back unless you're saving checkpoints and doing stuff like that. And that's especially in 11 Labs. I've covered that a few times. That's where all those little like red zones match up, and those are the ones where like if you stay in the safe zones, then you can pretty much just generate all the time and get something that sounds coherent. But the more you venture into those danger zones and like really mess with the likeness and some of the variation, then you can get them, whispering and yelling, but it's really hard to guide it and get exactly what you're talking about, the tonality.
I wish they had the tagging. I mean, honestly, it's like it would be so useful if it would be like square bracket or curly brace, blah 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 blah, angry, start and finish. I mean, come on, we can do like XML or whatever. It's like, can I feed it through an XML type of situation? Oh my God, dude, that would be amazing.
Very, very soon. And because there's also something called in painting, which it's more easy to understand in the visual aspects, but in painting is like you can mask a certain area and be like, put a cat there or whatever, and it like won't touch the rest of the picture. Well, you can do that with almost any form of AI, whether it's text or audio. So audio in painting would be, okay, this whole thing sounds great, but he needs to be mad when he says this word. So you can kind of like say from second 40 to second 45, give me 10 versions of that, but leave everything else alone, and use the everything else to influence what you're going to fill in the gaps. So that's the next iteration. But what you're talking about is having little tags that also exist, although it's a higher level of magnitude in terms of complexity to set up and keep consistent and the extra memory that it takes. But that also applies in the image generation, where there's some that use, say, like a rich text format. So instead of just doing tags, you could type like an apple, and instead of having to say a red apple, because when you're doing, like, for example, in Midjourney, if you ever try to type like a red car, you get like red everything, like the buildings are red and the people are red and like hats are red, and you can kind of tell because it's taken that word and it's trying to apply it to everything. So in a rich text format version, you just type apple, but you make the word apple red, or you make the word apple green. Ooh. And now it knows exactly what you're talking about, and it can assign. And there'll be something very similar in audio soon, where it works kind of how you're saying, where if like it's all caps, maybe it yells, and maybe if you put it like in italics, it'll whisper. And
well, how soon are we talking?
You can do it right now. You can roll your own, but it takes an insane amount of setup. Ask me how I know. The audio stuff, it takes a little bit longer to run, but I would say that you're already subscribed to 11 Labs. So you're
Mhm.
gonna probably get those features the second they're ready for kind of like mass release.
Yeah,
So
I'm doing $100 a month, dude. So I'm not playing.
yeah, no, I was at that. I dropped back down just because I found other ways to generate text locally. But 11 Labs is by far, like, if you just want to pop something on and like start getting audio immediately and not have to worry about Python updates and broken dependency chains and all kinds of fun stuff. But the other thing too that also exists in all of these different AI models that I'm aware of are things called LoRa's and embeddings. And I'll see if I can even find a good visual as I talk about some of this. But like, for example, if I can find a good image, a LoRa. All right, I'll just describe it because these are going to make it even more complicated than it really is. And imagine that if you were to type in like some famous celebrity, right? You type in Tom Hanks, or you type in JFK, for example. JFK would be a good example. JFK gets broken down into these tokens, and having them all together means something different than having them separate, right? Because if they're separate, it's 3 different letters. But when you put them all together, now JFK represents an actual person. And I'm going to oversimplify some of this stuff. So JFK, as the 3 letters together, that could technically be considered like a single token as opposed to 3, getting oversimplified. And what that does is you can almost look at that as like the map on how to get to this place that you need to go, or like the very rudimentary instructions on what like the recipe for what the final thing says, right? So it might be like cookies and it just says like flour, sugar, eggs, and that's it. And it's kind of implied that there's other things that'll go into it. But if it has those raw components, then whatever you do at the end of the sequence will kind of be cookies. So in the terms of JFK, that works because a lot of these models were trained, right?
It's a recipe. It's a recipe
in some ways. That in this particular example that I'm going to bring up, we're thinking of this in terms of a recipe. Exactly. So what happens though is that you can load a bunch of different models, and it would almost, to continue a strained analogy, it'll be like if you go to a bunch of different people's houses and one's got brown sugar and one's got rice flour and one's got, like, it's still the general components. You can still combine them. You can still get an end result that looks kind of what you're looking at. But depending on that source material, it always has like a certain flair to it, a certain flavor that it wouldn't have had if you had used all these other source materials. So what I'm describing here is like the models. Every different person's pantry or kitchen, that's kind of the model that you're using. And when it comes to, say, Midjourney, in simplified terms, it's kind of just like this one model. In the technical aspect, I think depending on what you're trying to generate and certain tokens, it might like kind of have like a switchboard and switch you to like certain models for certain things. I don't know. It's a black box. That's their business model. But in normal stable diffusion world, when you're doing images, and this applies to audio and text, you load up different models. So I'll show you one example, because you had on Twitter today, you were posting, you were asking Grok, which is Twitter, or sorry, I don't mean a dead name, X.
I like
X
it.
is...
Let's do it more.
So in X, you were showing how Grok, you could ask it about Jolly West, and it was giving you somewhat reasonable answers.
Better than ChatGPT. I mean, it didn't. ChatGPT I've found, because I use it a lot, right? Is like it has a little moral lessons on the end of different things. Or
by the way, this thing you're looking at is actually very offensive, so be careful if you ever mention this in public. And so let's just do that. I'm gonna say we'll start easy first, but I'll just say, like, tell me about how Jolly West was involved with MK Ultra. That's pretty incendiary in terms of GPT, at least. So it'll go on and crank its thing. I'll let ChatGPT think about that for a little while as it tries to dance around the words. Sure. Grok, I don't actually have access to yet, because I swear I signed up when the page said you need premium. And then as soon as I signed up, they changed it like 3 days later to Premium Plus, and I got caught in the crossfire. But once I get it, I'll check that out. But here's the one that I was running before. And again, to kind of hammer in what I was talking about, here's a whole bunch of different models that I can load into this guy. So when you're working with ChatGPT, that is the model. Whatever it's using right now to spill this stuff out, it is basically the ChatGPT model. So these ones let me jump in and out of different stuff. So this one, for example, I've already loaded this one a few times. It's got limited purpose. It's very novel, but it's trained on 4chan political boards, like 4 years of nothing but 4chan, and it does exactly what you would expect it to do when you ask it anything. It'll just go on to tangents and link you to like offensive YouTube videos and everything.
Meme fest.
It's basically meme fest in the very worst ways you could imagine. There's also this one, Hermes Trismegistus. This has been trained on all sorts of arcane texts and like mythical things and tarot cards and stuff like that. So if you ever want to get into like Dungeons and Dragons-y or like mystical research, you load up one of those guys.
Now, is this all Windows oriented or
no? This is you can run it on anything. So you can run it on Linux, you can run it on Mac, you can run it on anything.
What is your interface? Because this looks, I don't know if I'd say an IDE or what are you running here with all the models? Is it Stable Diffusion or something or what?
It's sort of like that. This one, so Stable Diffusion I've got running here, and this one, it's called Automatic1111, although they've rebranded the name because it's confusing name to just image generation UI or web image UI or something. So likewise, this text UI, it was originally called Uba Booga, but now it's called text generation UI or something. But if you just do a search for Uba Booga, here's the place you can download it from, and it's got instructions to install it on all different systems. So there's a Linux file, there's a Windows file, there's a Mac OS file. If you're running Windows with the Linux subsystem, you literally just double click the file and it does almost everything except for downloading the actual models themselves. So like I don't know how to zoom in here, but I guess I can just do the same thing. But here's all of my models that I've downloaded from various places. They all do different things, but that's this list that I click on to load all this. And it looks exactly like Automatic1111 because they all use something called Gradio, I believe, which is just like a UI front end for machine learning and Python. So a lot of things will tend to look very similar, and the developer intentionally made it look very similar. So
I did Stable Diffusion on my Mac.
So this is Stable Diffusion, but Stable Diffusion is also sort of a very broad term now because Stable Diffusion is what I might get some of this a little bit wrong, but this is what the original model was that got released to the public. But then this like UI that I'm using, it loads in all these different Stable Diffusion models. But almost everyone at this point has trained their own model, and everyone's using slightly, like modified versions of all this. Another really good one that I recommend is mage.space. If you're not familiar with this one is one of the best upgrades from Midjourney that you can do.
Really? And you don't have to pay for it?
You do have to pay for it, and here's all the little plan. And I don't have affiliate code yet, unfortunately. So you can do the free plan. We can even run some here, but the limitation is that until you get into the Pro plan or the Pro Plus plan, you have limited access to certain models. So this one doesn't have all the models that you can pick from. This one has 160 plus, but then once you get into here, you've got these things called LoRa's and textual inversions. So
hold on. I pay for Midjourney. So are you saying I could cancel Midjourney, not have to deal with Discord, which drives me up a tree?
Correct. 100%
and do
correct.
something here and get the same result?
Not only the same, it won't ever tell you no. Well, I think it will tell you no on certain like very, very bad things. But if you wanted to do, JFK with a bullet in his head and it's bleeding, ChatGPT would be like, hey, have some decorum. You know what I mean? But this thing won't if you do something
so
that's
say,
like
okay,
egregious.
Topless female is no issue or what?
Oh, not at all. Not at all.
Because there's like sex scenes in this. So I'm just saying.
In fact, that might be like one of the main demographics for some of these sites. But
okay, so that's what's paying the bills. It's kind of like VHS versus beta, right?
No. Very much so, my friend. So to rewind this, there's a thread here, and the reason that I brought up the recipes and that whole strained analogy is because this is where it gets really, really cool. And I'm only showing you the MageSpace version of it because I can show you more detailed on the local one. But So imagine the recipe is a textual inversion, also called an embedding. So let's say that instead of typing JFK, you typed Eric Hunley in, right?
Okay.
Well, now AI might specifically Mid-Journey and Stable Diffusion might have no idea who Eric Hunley is, or it might have had like 4 or 5 pictures of you, but for the most part, it knows what Eric is, and it might know what a Hunley is, and it might try to amalgamate what an Eric Hunley might be, because it doesn't know that Eric Hunley is a token that's almost a unique identifier to you, like JFK is to him. Because how many JFKs are out there? You know, untold numbers of people that have that acronym, but he kind of owns that.
Try Lee Harvey Oswald?
Yeah, sure. We'll do it on the free version even. Because
okay,
again,
well, I'm saying that because like on Mid-Journey, it doesn't come up super well. So, and he is a known quantity.
So in the free version here, you've got these 3 options in case you don't already know about these different options. Stable Diffusion 1.5 was the big one that first came out that looked really great, and it is still very much like if you know the concept of like a LTE or like a long-term release of something, like the one that they support. So this one's been around the longest, but it's also been trained the most and can look amazing still because of all that fine tuning. Another strange analogy is like the Genesis comes out, and the last year that the Genesis has games made for it, those games are the best ever because they know how to use every little bit of nook and cranny. And kind of where that's where 1.5's at. Yeah. 2.1, in my controversial opinion, just forget it even exists, because they retrained after all the criticism in 1.5 being trained on, you know, copyrighted images, nudity, like all this. They decide, okay, first of all, we're going to go back to the board. 1.5 was trained on 512 by 512 resolution. 2.1 was trained on 768 by 768. So they're like, higher resolution, but no boobies. That's essentially, and the internet was like, okay, so that doesn't even exist because we're here for one thing. So SDXL came out, and now SDXL is 1024. So you can see they're jumping by these increments. So SDXL is the best looking, only in terms of like it has much higher resolution by default. It can do much higher detail, but it has nowhere near the amount of training that has gone into Stable Diffusion 1.5 yet. 2.1's the neglected, you know, kid with like 3 eyes that you lock in the basement.
Okay, so quick question. Sorry to interrupt a lot, but so 1.5, while the resolution is technically lower, I have like gigapixel.ai and other things like that where I can upscale. So would I be better off with a 1.5 and just upscale the damn thing? And
it depends on what you're doing. It's only if you're struggling with a certain thing in 1.5, and then you can jump around. But exactly as you just mentioned, you can generate it at a lower resolution and then just upscale it. And even farther than that, you could start in Stable Diffusion 1.5, get something that you're pretty happy with, then pull that into XL, and then what you call image to image generation, where essentially you send the image in and it uses that as the prompt. You don't even have to give it text. You just say like, don't make me explain it. Here's what I want. Now you give me some versions of this, and then you can dial it in how much different, how much less different you want it to be.
Is this running locally, or is this running on a server, just something you're paying for?
This one's a server. This MageSpace, almost everything out there is running on a server that you're paying for. This one I've got that runs local.
Well, the local I'm not impressed with. Okay, I did the Stable Diffusion locally. It's like, okay, this is cute, but it looks nothing like Mid-Journey that I saw. It didn't. It just.
Oh no! It was. But okay, so
knowledge. But
well, so yeah, so here's the gap here, is because these are the 3 defaults. These ones are the official Stable Diffusion, right? These have not been like hand tweaked or modified in any way. So the results from these, they're a little bit limited. Let's see. This will go slow because I don't pay for any of these.
Okay.
So in addition to these models, look at all these other ones that they've got here, right? So some of them are trained to, like, here's an example called analog style. And this one is trained to look more like analog photography. Almost.
Nice.
And it almost like that film grain, some of the washed out looks. There's also models
1960s though. That would be amazing.
There's also models, you can see some of these are trained specifically on like anime. Some are more cartoony, some are more realistic. Here's our Lee Harvey Oswald. Not
right, but
great.
yeah.
So I can actually, I'll show you some of those examples in different models. But anyways, hundreds and hundreds of models in here. But these models are ginormous. Like this is the entire thing that tells the AI everything it needs to know to generate an image. Okay.
Right.
So this is the entire house. To straighten the analogy back again, this is the entire house that you're in. This is the entire building that the kitchen's in, right? But if you go in there and you're like, I need you to know how to make an Eric Hunley, where's the recipe for an Eric Hunley? That's essentially what a LoRa and a textual inversion are. This is like telling a model, like, don't forget everything you know, keep everything that you already know and use that to now understand this new thing that you haven't known. Like you don't know how to make a Pop-Tart, but you know how to make a croissant, you know how to make jelly, and you know how to, right? So like, here's this new instruction. So the two things that are the most important, and we're addressing exactly what you asked. How do I have like 4 individual characters and say like this guy's here and this guy's there?
Right.
So the long story short is you either train a LoRa on each of those characters, probably the direction I'd go, or you train a textual inversion on them. The difference between these two, I'm not the math wizard that can explain all the intricate details, but essentially a textual inversion is you teaching the recipe. It's like if the model has the capability of like generating an image of you even without knowing what you look like, it's almost like a police character sketch artist, right? They never had to see the person they're drawing, but if the description's good enough, they can kind of get the likeness down. This is kind of what a textual inversion is. You're not necessarily telling the model anything it doesn't already know, but you're giving it like how to arrange the things that it does know to make this
He's
thing
6 foot
that you're talking
tall
about.
with a pudgy nose, squinty eyes,
Right. And
so
so imagine you've got this long prompt that's like written out every detail and it finally generates you. And then imagine you can squish that whole prompt down into the word Eric Hunley. That's pretty much what a textual inversion is.
Okay.
It's just like a consolidated way of describing exactly what you want it to know about.
And then a LoRa is what in
A
comparison?
LoRa is a little bit different. A LoRa is slightly more advanced, and you can do a little bit more because instead of telling it like, okay, here's how you can make this thing I'm looking for, you basically say, you don't know about Eric Hunley. Here's 20, 50, 100 pictures of Eric Hunley. Here's his name. Now I'm going to go back, like every time I ask you for an image, you're going to generate what you think is Eric Hunley. And then before you return it to me, you're going to hop into like, consider like a little miniature model inside your model. You're going to jump into the Eric Hunley model that I've trained you and then run it again. Like take the base model that maybe has just like some random dude and then use that and build off of it and then put Eric Hunley in there based on this specialized knowledge. So now you've got this like portable mini model that you can transfer and use with other models that knows what Eric Hunley looks like. Whereas there might be some models out there that all the directions in the world and all the description, they'll just never get your likeness right because all it does is generates like hentai girls or something, right? But if you slip a LoRa in there, you can get a hentai girl image model to draw an Eric Hunley. And that's something that's I'm simplifying this in a little way, but this is the answer that you seek, my friend, is that you would train a JFK LoRa, Lee Harvey Oswald LoRa, yada yada. So to just show you some of those differences, because I know exactly what you're talking about when you're like, I tried Stable Diffusion, it didn't give me the results that Midjourney gave me. That's just because this whatever Stable Diffusion you were using probably was limited to the base model, and it probably didn't expose all these extra features like loading embeddings and loading LoRa's and everything else.
Right, and it's a lack of knowledge and a paradox of choice. I mean, you just said there's hundreds, so it's a matter of knowing what I need, and I literally just need to know one ABC, and then I can generate and say, okay, now do with him this, and build at 180, 280 characters, which is throughout.
So I'm going to show you all of the components and the ingredients. I don't think we'll be able to do the whole process end to end because there's a lot of steps, but so there's the first one that you mentioned was how do you do multiple fanning audio, essentially 11 Labs API. I might even be inspired to make like a little tool or something. The second one was how do
Please.
how do I generate these different characters? Well, first of all, you have to train AI on what those characters are. So the answer, Laura. That I wouldn't even say embeddings. I'll just say Laura. So here's on
those look
a
better.
different model. This one does look better, right? It's not perfect.
No,
but it's
if
better.
we could tweak it, it's definitely better than it was. That's one of
I
those.
know,
It's
like you give him an
like
AK-47. It looks like in this one.
well, you know, hey, he's got an
Nice,
association.
the
I'm okay with
Kalashnikov,
that.
right?
I'm glad that they have, you know, some variants. Now, if I could feed in a picture of LBJ and it could tweak it, that would be amazing. It seems like they fight me on that, though. It's like I have a damn picture.
So
Use this
here's
picture.
a good example of this. So there's something built into this one. I think I added this plugin called Roop. So
Now, is this on your machine or is this back?
This
to
one's on my
Mage?
machine, although
Oh.
another site that I should have plugged at the very beginning, but rundiffusion.com, and you can use Paranoid 15 to get 15% off of their Creators Club. And I won't go through the whole spiel, but basically Creators Club, long story short, you get faster, bigger, better machines to run it on that take less time, that can load more bigger, better memory models into memory. And it also gives you 100 gigs of storage to just generate everything away. But it's got all this stuff included: text to image, image to image. Deform does videos. ControlNet is what I'm about to bring up in a second. Same with multi-ControlNet. And then all kinds of other stuff. It does text prompting, everything. Once you graduate, this is my sequence. This is how I grew through it. Was it started at like Midjourney. I outgrew Midjourney at a certain point. I went to MageSpace, and then I outgrew MageSpace, and then I finally went and built my own machine. This is the closest you can get to building your own machine. It's got all these different tools in it in the cloud. And this is the price. It's 50 cents per hour. So however long it takes you to noodle around, you can set your clock, and it's got a little timer and everything. And then that also feeds into like what machine you want. So
well,
anyways,
this could work. I mean, I work with somebody else who's doing the fulling and things. So having multiple people be able to access it, that might be a better solution than.
And they do have a team plan here that does exactly what you're talking about. So you could have multiple people, they all sign in, you share a workspace. So this is really, really cool. I swear if I geek out about how cool Run Diffusion is, it just sounds like I'm doing like ad placements for them.
Oh, I don't care. I just
truly
need to
love
work.
it.
I'm happy. You know, again, like I said, with 11 Labs, I'm paying $100 a month. I don't care. I will pay some money if it saves me the effort. I just don't have the time to go install, train, and do. So anything that is done, it's worth paying a little bit of money to get this going.
So here I'm going to show you a really good example of how flexible you can make this without even having to train anything. Perfect. So I'm just going to try and find a decent image of Lee Harvey Oswald without too many other people in the background.
Well, mugshots are probably good.
Yeah, this looks like a decent one.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I'm just going to save this guy. And then using Roop, what I'll do is drag and drop that picture I just saved right in there. Okay. And then all I do is simply click enable here at first. And now when I hit generate again, and I won't, I'll leave the seed the same. So for example, if I want to regenerate these exact images, I don't know how much of this stuff you know, but this was just a random seed. So if I want to generate those again, I can hit this little like recycle button, and this will load in the last seed that it used. So now I can see the exact change. So now if I run this again, what it's going to do, it's going to generate the same images, but then when it's done generating those, it's going to analyze this image of his mugshot and then try to apply it to how his face looks in these different poses.
Perfect.
And then we'll take this a step further. That I'll think this is going to be the next thing that that you think is missing. So, and I don't know.
And this is running on your machine now.
Yeah, this is running on my machine, and it's going particularly slow just because I'm like recording on StreamYard, and I've got like a text thing loaded up.
I'm just trying to keep track because everything you're saying right now, okay, we're doing this for an audience, but I don't care about all them. I care about me. So it's like, okay, how can I grab this?
Everything you see me doing right now can be done exactly the same as I'm doing it in Run Diffusion. You would just load this up and go to this first option, which is Auto 1111. and that is this UI. This is Auto1111, and it works exactly the same. You'd click on this top left box, it shows you all the different models. Everything else would be identical.
As in Auto 1111.
Yes.
And this is okay. This is running locally now. Is this all paid for on your local machine, or is this just stuff that you're doing that you built?
What do you mean paid for?
I mean, do you have to pay for this, or is this running on your machine and it's like, okay,
no.
yeah,
nope. All the models are downloaded local. All the LoRa's, everything is local. The only thing I'm paying is essentially the energy that it takes to spin my video card up.
Sure. Then you need a good graphics card, probably.
And speaking of, this one's kind of this one's it is struggling under the weight of everything I'm throwing at it. I might have to unload my text generator. Let me take this guy out here first.
I mean, this is obviously the ideal because you can hit this and just hit it and hit it and hit it and hit it and waste all the time in the world.
Well, and there's also something now called, oh, here we go. Yeah, I think closing that might have done something. There's something called SD Turbo that just came out, and SD Turbo is essentially like a highly optimized version of regular Stable Diffusion, but it is capable of generating 100 frames per second at this resolution and on a consumer video card. The exact card I'm using now. Now I haven't played around with it yet. It came out like a couple weeks ago, but now there's people doing just real-time AI. Like they'll just have a video stream going and it just is rapidly generating all this stuff. So
okay, this might work for me. I mean, I have an M1 Mac Book Pro, which is pretty. That's still the bottom right.
Well, it hasn't finished yet. So first, what it's going to do is do the typical AI generation, and then once it actually gets all the way to 100%, then it goes back through and it's going to refine and apply.
Well, the bottom right looks good. That's why I was like, okay, I'm partly there. And it's got the ears aren't bad either. So I can see already that it's learning. That the bottom right looks solid. So if the rest of them come out, that's good enough for government work.
And this is just the random model I had loaded, which is RealViz number 2. So to explain what that is, once you get into these extra depths, once you start running Run Diffusion and learning about the different models and LoRa's, this is the only site that I know of currently outside of Hugging Face. But this one is geared towards kind of letting you search stuff. So for example, I don't know if anyone's trained Lee Harvey Oswald. Let's see.
That would save time if they did a good job.
I don't see it.
I think it's one of those off the wall things. I mean,
maybe, but I mean, I've also contributed models to this site. So thanks to me, there's a John Podesta model. There's a Ghislaine Maxwell.
Look up Jolly West. I bet there's a Jolly West.
I don't know, man. I don't think there would be. If there's not, maybe.
You slacker. Oh my God.
It does take having at least 20 to 30 very good high resolution, no film grain photos. And Jolly West is one of those guys. You'd probably have to hit the archives to dig up all the material you would need to do that.
Yeah, that doesn't exist. So I guess.
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna kill some stuff that I've got running because my poor computer is like starting to ask for help here.
Hey, that's what they're made for.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, no, that's when you can justify an upgrade, right?
Well, this is the upgrade. Like I don't, there's not much upgrade. And also that's another cool thing about Run Diffusion is that you can spin up like multiple different servers. So you can have one that's just training Lee Harvey and one that's training JFK and then one that's rendering images and one that's rendering a video. And at that point, it would take a long time and a full, like a room in your house full of computers to do that. So, okay, here, I think that it's finally getting to the end here. So we can see, here's Roop doing its thing. And there it is.
That's better.
It took a second.
That's not too bad.
So, okay.
Bottom right, perfect. And can you say, hey, that one, and then trained it in?
Yeah.
Even though they're all not terrible, but that.
So, for example, we could click on this guy. So, to show you in painting, and I do this almost on every show now, but this is like one of the cooler tricks. So, I'll click in paint. So there's two options here. One's called image to image, one's called in paint. So image to image is basically, imagine here it said Lee Harvey Oswald. I typed that in, I hit generate, and it made this image, right? Well,
Yes.
now if I wanted to, I can delete this, and now this is the prompt. So now it's describing to the AI itself in more graphic terms. Like, here's the thing that I want. And the coolest part is that I've got this denoising strength. And what this denoising strength does is it's like, here's how much you can change it. So if I do 1, it might generate a picture of a purple cat, right? Because it doesn't care. It has no care whatsoever on what the original prompt is. If I put it to 0, it generates me this identical image pixel for pixel. But if I change this to say like 0.3, for example, and run that, now what happens is it'll take what this is and it'll change it about 30% at the most. So now it's no longer Lee Harvey, right? Like it's
Right.
totally different.
Oh, so you could say, okay, so you can use that to, let me find a young man who's sort of like such and such, and you could take him and then tweak it out so it doesn't look like that person. Like, let's say I needed other Marines who are not Lee Harvey Oswald. I don't really have good ones, so I'm like, here's an actor about that age or whatever, some random face, stick it in there, tweak it out so it's not really them, but it's somebody. Is that what that's good for?
It's good for anything you can imagine. The other thing it's good for is like, okay, I like this image of Lee Harvey, but maybe I don't like the direction he's looking in. Maybe I just want like slight little nuances. Maybe like a really good example is like he's got like a button just randomly on his shirt that doesn't belong there because it's AI, and AI has tells sometimes. And you're like, man, it looks great except for that. So sometimes you can just pop this open and set it to like 0.15, which is going to keep it a lot more similar. And now hopefully instead of changing his whole likeness, it just changes it like a little bit. You know what I mean? But here, let me give you a more practical for what you're looking for. So let's say that this is what you wanted. So I'm going to click on in paint, and in paint is sort of a specialized version of this. And let's say that you wanted like a person like hanging out of this window for whatever stupid reason, right? So I can just mask that window right there, and then I can go in here and type person hanging out of window. And now if I generate this again, and I'm not doing any special tweaking, I'm just going to show you like the quick rudimentary version of this. Is it still generating? Oh, what I need to do is I need to crank this denoising strength all the way up now. Remember when I said if you crank it up, you could get like a purple cat or whatever? So we need to tell it like, throw caution to the wind. So I set it at 0.8, which is fairly high.
But it's only going to change the part you masked.
Correct.
Okay.
So, and again, we're doing this like very quickly. So now it's just like a black blob, for example. Some of the extra settings in here right now, it's using the original pixels that are under that mask. I can do fill, which will kind of take like an average color. It'll kind of be like a blurry version. You can also do latent noise. Latent noise will just fill it full of like colorful glitter. So it is forcing it to restructure everything from scratch. So if you want something to look dramatically different, usually this latent noise option is a good one. Lots of experimentation here. But see, now instead of having this black bar here, because it was forced to work with the pixels that it had, now it'll have a little bit more freedom. We still don't have a person necessarily hanging out of that, so I might go in here and crank this thing up even higher. And then I can also give this like way more weight. I won't explain all the intricacies of all this, but this is essentially like amplifying my text by wrapping it in these parentheses like that.
Okay. That sounds like it looks like what they do when they're saying somebody is Jewish on Twitter. It's the same.
Sometimes you'll see it in like a prompt, and it's like you have to double check it sometimes. Another example of this one too, because there's a person hanging out of the window is completely out of context for what this particular image already represents. So let's say like his mouth, you wanted it to be open, right?
Okay.
So you could do Lee Harvey Oswald yelling. And
that's the stuff that I'm definitely looking for. I don't know.
So I'm going to not do latent noise. I'm going to play around. Maybe we'll try fill this time. I'm just kind of like playing. And also now that I close some programs, I might be able to generate more than one at a time. But here you go.
Okay. Yeah, that's a little okay.
Right? This is kind of, it doesn't look like he's yelling. Kind of looks like
yeah,
he's
yeah,
filleting, but like a little baby face going on here. But that's where this kind of is cool. Where like Mid-Journey, you always get 4 options to pick from. So that's what this batch size is here. So now when I hit generate again, now we'll get 4 versions of them. And it is feeling a lot snappier now. Before it was stuck. And I don't think that this has Roop still on here. So I can set Roop up again just like I had it before, because now when it's changing his face, it's not applying Roop. So I'll show you what Roop is.
Yeah.
So Roop is this little tab that I'm checking and unchecking.
Oh, that's the making sure it stays to the.
So here's the website for Roop. And this essentially, it's just a face swapper. That's all it does. And then there's some extra cool settings in it. So if you had a picture, it's funny. You're starting to look like a sex doll in some of these.
Yeah, it's not the best option. Interesting.
Yeah, and all. I think part of that is because of this fill.
Yeah.
What was that?
Maybe it needs to be more subtle. I don't know if that's the.
Well, the reason is because of the fill that it's doing. So what it's doing is it's taking an average of the original image and it's blurring it. So if you imagine if you were to blur his lips, you would kind of get like a black circle where his lips meet up. You know, like where the shading is.
Is it too wide then? So it's trying to compensate for the whole area.
I think so. So I'm going to take it off of fill and I'll change it to original. The problem with original now is that it might still try and keep too much of the shape from his mouth being closed. So let's just see what happens in there.
So experimental. It's interesting.
So this one's even weirder. And it's going to apply Roop on top of it. So it doesn't look like him yet. But then at the very last second, you'll see it apply Roop in here. There it goes, Roop. And that's like the last 5%. And you can kind of see what it's doing in the background here. It's doing face detection, and then it's also doing this thing called gender age, where it's trying to determine if it's like a male, if it's a female, how old they are, and using all that information to then update the face accordingly. So, so here we go. I mean, there you go. His mouth is open.
Terrible. That's not terrible. That is.
And if you really wanted to. You could just keep feeling yourself until you get this just perfect. But the good news is that there's a way freaking easier way to do all of this. So Roop is cool. Specifically here, and I'll show you one more example of Roop. Let's say the model had no idea who the hell Lee Harvey Oswald was. Kind of like when you just do regular stable diffusion, or we did on MageSpace. So let's do like Eric Hunley, for example. Like it's not going to know who Eric Hunley is.
It's doomed.
But I'm going to leave Lee Harvey Oswald in here. And this is where Roop really shines. So you don't even have to necessarily know how to describe the person you want. You can just plop a Roop in there and it'll generate. First, we'll see who it thinks Eric Hunley is. And then we'll see. So there you go. Congratulations. It kind of nailed you a little bit. It knows your lineage in some ways.
No, that's it. It is one of those. It's like, maybe I should see if it pulls something up off my name. Without I'm curious.
So now let's imagine in your mind's eye Lee Harvey Oswald version of all these guys. Okay. It's hard to do, but you're about to see it in real time here. So you can see it, right?
That's very weird.
Right? But you can see it. That's the Lee Harvey Oswald version of all these guys.
Yeah.
So anyways, if you were able to say generate something that looked very close to Lee Harvey Oswald but wasn't quite there, using Roop on top of it, it'll bring it over that extra mile. It'll give it all those little extra details and like a weird pockmark or a mole. It'll do that stuff wonderfully. And as you can see, it's taking a grainy black and white mugshot, and it knows how to transpose that into a realistic color photo, right? And even if you look, it's like it is paying attention to the gestalt and like, you know, all of the ratios on these people's faces, but then just applying the different. So, okay, this is sort of just like shooting blindly into the air, hoping that you eventually get him to have like a mouth position in a certain way that you want it to be in. So the next cool one, I'll unenable Roop for now. And we've got this thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say the one thing that I'm seeing is, okay, we're seeing this and we're tweaking the one particular shot. But how do you have that like saved somewhere to where you're like, oh, bring up my Lee Harvey Oswald and have him do blah, blah, blah?
A lot of different ways. One is training a LoRa does that for you. So once you have a LoRa trained, it'll save itself as a file. So from then on, you could say, you know, maybe I trained it as Lee HO or LHO, and that would just be in here. And just by having this LoRa assigned in here, it'll know that anytime you bring up Lee Harvey Oswald, to use the training that it knows. Or you can have, this is what you would call the trigger word. A lot of people do weird techniques. They'll call it like SKS, which is basically doesn't mean anything. And this is a proof that it's working, because if you were to just type SKS and hit generate, you might get a car, you might get a patch of grass, you might get a bunch of random stuff. But if you can type SKS and it generates Lee Harvey Oswald, this is a way for you to know unequivocally that that came from your training. That said, I've looked into all the documentation that is released by Stable Diffusion themselves, and they claim that that's not the best way to do it. The best way to do it is to search for someone that looks close to what you're looking for and then train on top of that. So let's say it was Lee Harvey Oswald. You can laugh. I don't have any better examples off the top of my head, but you might say like Matthew Broderick or something, or, you know, a short person with a small build that has dark hair and dark eyes. So if you can start with the model knows who Matthew Broderick is because it's searched on, you know, trained all his Hollywood photos, you can use that as the starting point and then say, okay, now take these 20 pictures of Lee Harvey Oswald, start with Matthew Broderick, but now you're going to think, anytime I say Matthew Broderick, you're actually going to think Lee Harvey Oswald. And the way you do that is by just saying this file here. So we can get way more into depth on that, but this is the crux of generating like a certain person. So let's say that we've got a Lee Harvey Oswald trained already, just for the sake of conversation, and I can show you how to actually do that on Run Diffusion, which is what I use to do all of this stuff. So here's Lee Harvey Oswald, but instead of wanting to just randomly fire at the wall until you get something that sticks.
Oh, hold on. So you do use the server version then?
I do. Whenever I want to do like 5 things at once. Like, for example, I wasn't even able to generate this image because we were live streaming. So if I'm also rendering like a 3D scene, there's no chance in hell that I'm going to get my computer to do anything in Stable Diffusion. So in those cases, I'll run Diffusion. And if I'm doing like a 3 or 4 hour video, I might do it overnight so that my poor computer can take a rest. You know what I mean? But yeah, I exclusively use Run Diffusion for training though, because training takes my computer out of commission for the day.
So when you train Run Diffusion, does that mean that you can then download that model and then run it locally after the fact?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. So so you're just you're paying for their resources.
Correct. And as an example here on Civit AI, and I think it's Civitai, I think that's how you pronounce it. So for example, if I search for Epstein, right? These are both my models. The one on the right is Stable Diffusion 1.5. The one on the left is the new Stable Diffusion XL that has 1024 by 1024. So here's an example of after I trained it on 20 images. And these are not in-painted or like upscaled or anything. This is just like render Jeffrey Epstein as a spaceman or as an astronaut, and there it is. Render him as an Easter bunny. There it is.
Now, did you find somebody you felt looked kind of like him and then use that?
This one I did not. I didn't know about that trick until after I had done some. This one was just straight up Epstein. And here's the problem is that and actually I'll even predict it now. If we search for
Jolly West
Jeffrey Epstein on any of these public models that are using the default Stable Diffusion, what it's going to show you,
or Jeffrey, sorry,
it'll be fine. Let's see. So It's going to be a combination of this picture.
Yep.
See this like very prominent crease in his forehead? Or anyways.
Yep.
That big crease, and then his mugshot, which is even worse. It's funny it's not even coming up. That's like the number one image that he's trained on. This one right here has been sampled so many times by the default Stable Diffusion model that if you do a Jeffrey Epstein search, it will produce you almost like this picture of him. And no matter what you try and make it look like, it's like this version. And without getting too much in the weeds, let me see if I can remember where this is. Just used by. There's a site you can go to and search exactly for what the models were trained on.
Jeez,
this might be it.
You're so deep into this. I'm like a lot to catch up on.
This is it. It is the. Okay, so if I search for Jeffrey Epstein, here's what the model was trained on. And what you're going to notice, look at all the repeats already. See this, the 4 chicks with this picture? But that means that every time it scanned the same image, it added that much more weight. So it thinks that like that's what Jeffrey Epstein looks like. So long story short, Jeffrey Epstein's training is limited almost to like all of the news articles that he was in leading up to his jail time and eventually demise.
I'm curious what that's trained on. If we're using this idea.
So here's what the RV Oswald was trained on.
Look at number 3. That's why the 4th one is the same one we used. Okay, these are all good. Mug.
So, but the same problem principles here again is overtraining, because you don't want to train a model on like 800 pictures of your mugshot and then 1 picture of you that's not a mugshot, because now it doesn't really know what you look like. It knows what Eric Hunley's mugshot looks like, and it's going to try and apply that to everything. So this is the long story short, this is the problem with some of the images, specifically with Jeffrey Epstein. So now if I go back to MageSpace,
can we get back to where you were just again and try Jolly West? I'm just curious if there's anything that's been done on that. Nope. Okay.
Not at all. Let's do Jollyton. Or is it
Jolyn Jollyn West?
I think there's a T in there, isn't there?
No T. It's like Louis Jolyn West.
Okay, nothing. So this is a good example of someone that Stable Diffusion doesn't even know who the hell you're talking about.
Oh, I can name a lot, like Sidney Gottlieb.
I'd be surprised if he doesn't even have 1 image, but so we've got Sidney Bechet, but no Sidney Gottlieb.
Sidney. Okay, there we go.
Let's do MK Ultra. Ultra brings up okay, a picture of Chris Christopherson.
Well, this is actually, can you send me a link to that site? I mean, that's actually handy to give a reference, like, okay, they know nothing about this, you're gonna have to work at it more or less, or there you go.
I just posted a link to that, and I'll post the link in the description for the people we don't care about that are watching. But yeah, so this is a really great tool, this one, and this again only shows you what the very original released model for Stable Diffusion 1.5 is out into the public. I think pretty sure that's where this comes from. So this doesn't know about all the extra stuff that might have been trained on top of these and any of the newer models, but this was how I realized why every damn Jeffrey Epstein image I was generating always looked almost exactly the same. So that led me to generating my own model. So now you've got them smiling, you got them smirking, and then I'm not logged in, so they're not showing the ones they consider to be inappropriate. They're not, but here's another person that just randomly downloaded my model, and they generated this picture of Tom Hanks.
Like him with Tom Hanks. Yeah.
Yep. What's else? We got one with Oprah.
Oh my.
I love these, man. And this is the coolest part, is that like I trained the model, I put it up, and now anyone can go and make a meme with these guys.
I love it.
Okay, so let me rewind a little bit. Oh yeah, so look, this is so funny, dude. They won't even show you a picture of Jeffrey Epstein because they say it's sensitive content. But once on MageSpace, once you pay them the $30, they'll be like, here you go, here's boobs, here's blood, here's anything that you want to see. Okay, so rewind back a little bit because I want to finish this thought on like the next final ingredients that you're looking for. Let's say that we've got a model that already makes it look like Lee Harvey Oswald. And we'll say that Roop's doing that job for now, but essentially Roop is like the poor man's cheat, like the shortcut to training your own model. So once you train the model, it'll know a lot more about how to generate them. But if you want them smiling, or if you want them looking to the left or looking up, now you're like in a whole different realm of like micro control. But luckily there's this thing called ControlNet. And ControlNet, I'll actually just pull up an image of some of the options instead of going through them in real time because it's really complicated. But we'll say like ControlNet Face, for example. So ControlNet Face lets you draw exactly where you want the left eye, the left eyebrow, the mouth, where you want everything to be, the scale it needs to be in, the direction it's facing, whether or not they're open or closed, all of that. And the coolest part is that you don't necessarily have to know how to draw this. You can take any image and like let's pick a famous picture, Einstein with his tongue out, right?
Okay.
So okay, famous picture. Here's a good version of it. Oh my God, I'm not giving Wikipedia any money for the horrible service that they provide.
I used to. I refuse to anymore.
Okay, so just like before, I'm just going to drag and drop Einstein.
Okay, so you're
here.
just saying stick his tongue out. So it doesn't have to be Einstein. It's just saying do the same thing this guy's doing.
Yeah. It's not going to be Einstein here. Nice. and honestly, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to do the whole end to end. I'll show you the motions. So I'll enable it. And then what I'm going to do is I will pick open pose. And there's multiple versions of open pose. Some are for hands, some are for the body, some are just for the face. So the first one we'll probably look at is open pose face only, I guess. And then these ones, I just kind of blindly pick one and hope it works. We can get into that on some completely different issue. But so now what it's going to do, and I think there's, if I do this allow preview, when I hit run, it should show us what it's going to be using. So let me just hit generate and see what happens. So what we should see here is the open pose version of this Einstein face, and it'll draw the little green face and the left and the right eye and the eyebrows and all that stuff. And then when it goes to actually do its final revision of this face, it'll pass it over into here and then make sure that the eyes and the tongue and everything lines up with however the open pose says it should.
Wow.
Yeah, let's see. And it might also just kind of explode because I wasn't expecting to get this deep in here. But this is exactly, so this will be the first step, is figuring out how to get the facial expression how you want it. And then you can go one step deeper. And just like I was showing the open pose, let me pull it back up again. So we're looking at open pose face.
I guess you could use your own picture too, right? Just like,
well, that's exactly it. And then so here's the full version,
and then stick it there.
So this is face, body, and hands. So you know how everyone used to say like, "Oh, the dead giveaway, AI doesn't know how to do hands." It didn't, but now if you use open pose, you can tell it exactly where you want every single finger to be. If you want someone to have a very specific hand gesture. And this one is just taking video and it's processing it. So it's analyzing the video, it's drawing the stick figures to coordinate and orientate wherever they're at. And then what it does is it takes those stick figures and then it uses that as the model for when it draws the next thing. So this one actually kind of fell on its face a little bit because I probably don't have all of the right settings connected perfectly.
Okay.
But see, here's what it tried to do. That's what it is. I think I'm using the wrong open pose. And I honestly, I haven't updated this with all the latest models for open pose. That's probably what's happening, is that it's looking for the green face with the green eyes and it's not seeing it and it's freaking out. But you can see that it got the facial expression right. I just need to find the right model to then map these white dot coordinates to, facial features. But that would be the first step, and then the next step would be, again, like if you were to zoom out and do the entire body, and that's exactly what the rest of that open pose is. So this is if you want Lee Harvey Oswald perched up somewhere, or
well, yeah, we want all
he wasn't
that. Yeah.
right.
Like just what you heard with the drill sergeant, you know, he's got stuck the rifle in his foot and all that.
And then I think if I'm just searching free open pose editor online. Here's one, openposeai.com. So here's a site you can just go to right in your browser, get any perspective that you want. You can click on the hands, move the hands around. So if you want, you can construct the exact position that you want them to be in, and then you can just export directly from here and then load it right into this window. And then you would pick, open pose full, for example, and that will do the full body version. Or you can do, like this regular open pose. But and you can do this with image references too. So if you can find anyone at all that's already making the exact same posture that you want Lee Harvey Oswald to be in, you just
perfect.
load that picture in and then generate Lee Harvey Oswald, and he will then be in that same pose.
Oh, dude, that's amazing. That is amazing.
Let's see if I can find something a little extreme. Yeah, I kind of want to do like an Ultimate Warrior thing, but again, in effort of time here, another thing you can search on Civet AI are poses. So if I just do, I'll do a search on Google because I'm not sure where they have them hiding here. Civet AI poses. So here we go. So there's people that have just uploaded all sorts of different poses, and again, I'm not signed into like a paid account right now. So it's not going to show all like this. Well, there, sure enough, will lots of feet. But as an example, if you were just like really into this pose with feet, right?
All right.
Oh yeah, it's not going to show to me, but someone has pre-generated.
Go scroll down. There's
open...
Cat Girl on. I'm curious. What's Cat Girl? Would that be too sensitive? Yeah. I mean, sorry to do it to Oswald, but that's kind of silly. It would be interesting.
So here's all the different cat girl poses.
So like grab one and see. I don't know.
So yeah, so you could just well, actually this one's a little different. This is actually a Laura that's been trained to make this pose. So which is actually it's a whole another topic that like you can use open. So here's an open pose. This one's very obvious.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, just
right. So you can make we can do Oswald in this pose.
Oh, I know. I mean, I just want to see what it looks like. It's so drastic. It really shows the point.
Let's see. Again, I might actually. This is where Run Diffusion really shows its weight in gold sometimes, because if I was using Run Diffusion right now, and I'm not going to load it up just because it can take 5 to 10 minutes to load up. I'm not going to use it right now just because of that, but it would make this all easy because they've got all of like the latest models loaded. They take care of like when there's an update and something breaks, like they fix it because it's all server side, right? So another thing too, I'm going to change this to regular Stable Diffusion 1.5. Long story short, because the latest SDXL model has a little bit more quirks with it when you're trying to get it to work with ControlNet. So I'm going to set that, and that'll allow me to use this control SD 1.5 open pose. So now, and I'm also, I'm just going to see what it looks like. I'm not going to poke around too much. Let's see. That's enabled. I'll preview.
I'm so glad you could pull up the text window to see what's actually going on, or the terminal.
Yeah, sometimes you're just like waiting forever and you wonder what the heck's actually happening in the background. Although here, let's see what's actually happening. I'm scrolled up. So you can actually see that now ControlNet, unlike Group where it generated the image first, then it took Group and applied it, ControlNet, every single time it does like an iteration of refinement, it's incorporating ControlNet into it more. And I think it might have crapped the bed a little bit. I might have a setting wrong here. Oh, I've got a couple. Hold on. Open pose. Oh, I think I need to leave that to none. Let's try that again. Some of these options, this preprocessor, this is actually like if you had uploaded an image, this is telling it, hey, before you use this image as reference, first scan it for an open pose or scan it for a face or scan it for a hand. But since this is already an open pose that's already like exactly in the format it needs to be, I think I just leave preprocessor to none so it doesn't try to like reprocess it. So let's see if that helps at all. And Roop is still enabled, so that's why it looks so. Okay, here we go. So now we've got the pose closer. The problem is that we are rendering it to a square image instead of a vertical image, and this image here is vertical. So couple options. You can do a crop and resize. You can do resize and fill, just resize. I'm going to do a just resize. We'll do it again. I'm also going to take Roop off because now the perspective is going to throw it off a little bit. It's funny, right? I mean, it's and the other thing too is that
Jesus, that is crazy.
And then let me do a full size too. So instead of 512 by 512, I'll do 512 by 768. So that'll give us a slightly similar aspect ratio as the input.
And this is your longest episode of this yet.
I think I've gone to maybe 2 hours at one point. I didn't mean to, but sometimes you just get on a tangent and you start having fun. Time flies. So it feels like a pot of water we're watching boil. Like when I pull it up and look at it, it like doesn't even move, right? It's so weird how it decides
I get it. Yeah.
And also, I just bumped the resolution up on this, and going from 512 to 768 is actually a very considerable jump.
Sure
and I'm doing 4 at a time. I probably could have bumped that down to 1, but let's see.
But we still get the point. I mean, that's.
Well, yeah. Here, I'm actually gonna. That's another cool thing too is I can hit interrupt at any point, and it kind of like cuts it off wherever it was working at, and lets me try again. If I ask it really nice, maybe. Maybe not.
This is running locally. Your machine's just dying right now. How's that fan going? You hear a fan in the background going.
No, we're good. We've got lots of fans in this thing, so it ironically the more fans you add, the less noise it makes. You know, because they don't have to work as hard. Okay, well, let's assume that my computer doesn't explode next to me, but. Here's open pose working. So if you can just extrapolate this concept now, any pose you can think of, including a sultry on your knees, prone position.
No, that's amazing. No,
else.
that's really cool. There's so much here, and I'm so completely lost. You're gonna have to publish this so I can like rewind, or I'm gonna be pinging you on DMs.
That's fine, man. So as a quick, we'll wrap it up here. As a quick recap. We first we talked about 11 Labs and voice and how to do some of that stuff. Nothing really new under the sun. If you've already got a subscription to 11 Labs, you're already at the head of the curve. Just wait for them to implement more features. That's my opinion on it so far. If you want to do, we didn't get into this part. Also on Run Diffusion, there's something called audio gen. So let's say, for example, you wanted a certain sound effect that you just can't find and you don't have it already in your sound effect library. You can go in audio gen, type it in, man falling from ladder, mountain exploding. You can type something that doesn't even exist, like the sound of one hand clapping, and it'll generate you those sound effects.
Oh, wow.
There's also something called music gen, which does exactly what it sounds like. So it'll generate music for you. There's also a website called suno.ai that can do the best music generation that I'm familiar with. So if you want to make a little JFK Lee Harvey Oswald theme song in the style of 1990s R&B, you just type that in and it makes it for you.
Dude, this is amazing.
And then we went into LoRa's and textual embeddings. This is how you teach AI what a new thing is that it doesn't know about yet. The better of those, in my opinion, being LoRa's. And then we talked about in painting, and then finally Roop and control net. And we did some faces and we did some body poses, and yeah, my computer is not happy with me right now. It hasn't even moved an inch. It's entirely my fault for putting 512 by 768 in here. That was a bad move.
That's fine, man.
Well,
This is
it's
amazing.
it's fine, but it just means my computer is not going to respawn now until it decides to. So hopefully this is enough to digest on. If you want and like hyper focus on any one of these specific tasks, and we can do it entirely in Run Diffusion so that you can follow the steps.
Oh, yeah, it
bit
went
for bit
nuts.
again.
It definitely went nuts.
It did go nuts a little bit on this one.
Yeah.
Well, you know what though? I hit interrupt, so it didn't actually.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
It didn't get to finish its thought. So actually, let me crank this back down to 1, and I'm also going to change this to.
How about make it 300 by 500?
There's special numbers that you can use.
Oh, okay.
I always forget what they are. This is the SDXL cheat sheet. 1.5. Oh God. Okay, I can't remember exactly what it is. So we'll just plug something in. We'll do like
3 by 5. Yeah, 3 or whatever. Done.
Let's see, and we'll just do 1. Hopefully this doesn't destroy my computer. There we go. Okay, that was quick.
Oh, perfect.
So and okay, so a couple things. It doesn't know who Lee Harvey Oswald is, and we're using a 1.5 model, which inherently has slightly less resolution, and it's only a 300 by 512 image, so it's got a lot of things working against it. It's not terrible, and if I click Roop on, it will increase the likeness incredibly. So we'll do another one.
Yeah, since it's low, why not? It's going much faster. Oh, perfect.
Now he's missing hands. But
welcome to AI.
Yeah, welcome to AI. So yeah, and then this too, I'm not going to get into all of it, but like you can draw on this thing. So if you wanted, I could like clear this guy out. And oh, I don't know where he went.
Undo, Command Z, Control Z.
Yeah, there's not all those in there. So this little drawing though, like I can go in here and like draw something different. So I'll do like a little smiley face. This doesn't actually translate into anything, but if you wanted to like draw the stick figure of like how someone is positioned, you can do a very rudimentary version of it right in here.
Jesus,
so, and then
crazy.
just to put a little hat on top of this, a little feather in the cap. Let's send this version of Lee Harvey Oswald over to the in painting.
Oh, so he's gonna be jumping out the window.
Well, no, I want to actually put a hat on his head.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Wearing
pork pie hat.
What?
Pork pie hat. It's kind of hat.
I don't even know. It's a
kind of hat. A pork pie hat. Just.
You know what? Let's see if it knows what the hell a pork pie hat is. Okay.
Yeah.
Right? Is this what we're going for?
Sure, that'll work.
So it might just turn him into Buster Keaton. We'll see.
Okay. I'm just throwing it out there, man. Never mind fedora. That's boring. I mean, you got to have a hat that's different. Oh, he's a cop now.
That's a cool spin on it. Maybe he was. What was his name? Tillman?
Tippett. JD Tippett.
Maybe Lee Harvey Oswald was JD Tippett.
Maybe, except JD Tippett looked like JFK. That's the controversy.
So no, I mean, not perfect, but clearly, I mean, and this was like a 10-second version, right?
Sure.
Put a hat on Lee Harvey Oswald. There it is. Well, then we could say like, make him smoking a pipe. So I'll just.
Oh my God! I'm thinking of the sunglasses and the pipe, the meme thing.
Oh, the Bob Dobbs.
I guess I don't know. I always show it like with everybody.
Looking a pipe. Yeah, look, Bob Dobbs, I think is who you're talking about. JR Bob Dobbs.
Oh, okay. No, I was actually thinking about there's a meme like anybody was saying, such and such slaughters this, and then they go to the meme with the digitized sunglasses and the
right. Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just throwing it out.
So here we got maybe not exactly a pipe,
No.
but with enough sitting down and tweaking and playing, you can see now how
Obviously, yeah.
anything is possible. He doesn't have hands still. I kind of like this one. But yeah, man. So everything that you were asking about, 100% possible for you to do by yourself using Run Diffusion or show someone else to do in 20, 30 minutes. This one took a little bit longer because we went over like a bunch of different topics, but everything that you want to do is possible in this one app that I was showing you.
Wow. Amazing, dude. Well, thank you so much for the breathtaking lesson.
Yeah, man. Whenever you want, if you want another refresher, or if you actually want to make the rubber hit the road and actually make like a specific scene with, a certain character doing a certain thing, we can do that one like start to end if you want.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, this is a major project. So if you're like, you want teaching material, we can say, here's this scene, here's what's going on, and then do it. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, we'll do like a little tree, like a little lab or something, like a little tech lab.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. Seriously.
All right, man. Well, tell people once more where to find you and your awesome content. If you don't know who Eric Hunley is already, by the way, go and subscribe right now. He's got some of the most amazing interviews. It's a shock that he's even talking to a degenerate like me.
Oh,
so
please.
Thanks for coming. And tell people where to find you.
Tripoli, please.
Okay. Yeah, I don't compare much to Sam Tripoli. Shout out, Sam.
Just look for my name, man. Thank you very much. I'm cool.
All right, man. I'll leave everybody on a AI-generated commercial for my homunculus owner's manual.
They said it was forbidden. They said it was dangerous. They were right. Introducing the paranoid American homunculus owner's manual. Dive into the arcane, into the hidden corners of the occult. This isn't just a comic. It's a hidden tome of supernatural power. All original artwork illustrating the groundbreaking research of Juan Ayala, one of the only living homunculologists of our time. Learn how to summon your own homunculus, an enigma wrapped in the fabric of reality itself, their power at your fingertips, their existence, your secret. Explore the mysteries of the Aristotelian, the spiritual, the Paracelsian, the Crowleyan homunculus, ancient knowledge lost to time, now unearthed in this forbidden tale. This comic book holds truths not meant for the light of day, knowledge that was buried, feared, and shunned. Are you ready to uncover the hidden, the paranoid American homunculus owner's manual, not for the faint of heart? Available now from Paranoid American. Get your copy at tjojp.com or paranoidamerican.com today.